Hi, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Bree. This is Kaladin. In today's video, we're going to be going through all the books I read in the month of May. I have a bit of a stack here, and I thought I would organize them by the year they were published, so going from the oldest to the newest published. I have a reading vlog for a lot of these books, but not all of them. Oh, and that's Pippi. But we have a lot to get through, so why don't we just get started with the first book, which was published... Oh, no, I need to remember to do my ebooks. I always forget this. Are you gonna be good? No, I can see you're choosing violence right now. Pippin? Pippin! We have a lot to talk about. First of all, I have a reading vlog for a majority of these, but not all of them. So some I might be briefer than others in my thoughts on them because I've already discussed them in depth in a video, and I will leave them all linked for you. If you can hear anything, my cats are going crazy, so just be aware. If there is noise, I cannot stop it at this time. So the first one I have was published in 2010. Yes, 2010, and that's Changeless by Cale Carriger. This is the second in the Parasol Protectorate series. The first one's called Soulless, which is about a woman who doesn't have a soul, and so she can interact with vampires and werewolves and stuff in a different way because they have no effect on her. And it's like a romance between her and this werewolf detective, and there's mysteries involved. This one I was enjoying. There's like this mystery of the main detective guy. Something's going on with his pack from his past, and so they are going there and dealing with a lot of stuff. So I was enjoying this until the end because it was fun, it had a lot of humor, and I was enjoying it actually more than the first one because you got to know the characters, and I felt like the humor was ramped up in a way that I really like. But the ending, really, it was a trope that I really do not like, and I didn't like the way that it was handled, and I don't really know at this point if I want to continue with the series because of how much I didn't like the ending. I think overall I'm between like a 2.5 and a 3. Like, I really didn't like the ending, and usually the ending doesn't bring it down like a star rating, but in this case I really feel like it did because I was enjoying it. I was at like a 3.5, and now I feel like I'm at like a 2.5. So maybe I should rate it like a 3. I don't know. It didn't sit well with me. So that's Changeless. Next I have an ebook. This was published in 2018, and this is the second to the... It's called The Wonder Engine. I don't remember what the series is called, but the first one is called Clockwork Boys. I think it's called Clock Tower Wars, but it's by T.K. Fisher, and it's part of the world that has Shadowheart. I cannot speak. It's from the world that has Swordheart and Paladin's Grace. And I haven't read Paladin's Grace, but I read Swordheart, and so I started with the Clockwork Boys because I think that people say you're supposed to start there, and I enjoyed it. I would say overall it was my least favorite T.K. Fisher that I've read so far. The world was interesting, and I liked kind of seeing how they're going to connect to the overall world, but I think in terms of plot and structure, I felt like this could have been one book and instead they were two. I think because it could have been one book instead of two, both just ended up feeling a little lackluster for me. So I think I would give this like a 3 or 3.5. Like, I still really enjoy T.K. Fisher's character work. I think that she really builds like a character in a world that's just fun to be dropped in, but I wanted more from the plot and the clock tower things that are part of this. It's like all her stuff is kind of steampunky. There's like a science element to it. I found that very interesting, but I just think that, I don't know, it lacked its spark for me that other ones did. I think I just wasn't as sucked in, and I liked the romance and stuff like that, but I've read Swordheart and that was my more favorite of the romances. So I just think this one just took what I loved about Swordheart and dulled it a little bit. So I didn't like it as much. But I will say there was a moment in the second book, this one, The Wonder Engine, that did really get me emotional. So I think I'm going to go with a 3-star on it. Then I have a book I read for a reading vlog, and it was also published in 2018. This is Frankenstein in Baghdad by Ahmed Sadawi, and this is translated from Arabic. It was published in Iraq originally. It's of the U.S. occupation of Baghdad, and we're following a bunch of different characters, and this one of the characters decides to build a human out of the body parts that are found from these bombings that happen in Baghdad, and use it to build a Frankenstein, essentially, to go and prove that they are also human and to humanize them in a way. But the actual body goes rogue. The concept I really liked of this book, and I think the conversations it was having about war and like how we look at people, especially people of color, as non-human. It was interesting to get like a perspective of that I haven't heard of before. And I also liked the retelling aspect of it being like a Frankenstein retelling. I just think the book lost me in a way because there were so many perspectives we were following and so many different things, and it just jumped around so much that I just couldn't get my bearing. So I didn't rate this one, but you can see more of my full thoughts in the reading vlog. But that is Frankenstein in Baghdad. Then the last one for 2018 is a novella. It's Black God's Drums by P. Djeli Clark. This is a little novella that he wrote, and he has a lot of novellas, and I think he really excels in the novella territory. So I read this at the end of the month, and it was just one that I have been wanting to pick up, and I saw it was available. And I think this one's my favorite of his novellas. I loved A Master of Jinn, and it gave me this like certain feeling reading it, and I feel like this novella gave me that same feeling. It's about a young girl who sees something in the streets that she knows is like going down, and she wants to tell someone and use it to her advantage to like get further in life, but she also like needs to let people know about what is going on. So she teams up with this other person who is like a captain of a ship, and I won't say more from that. I think he paces things so well. And Creeper, who's the main character, I really enjoyed being in her head, and just like, she's young and naive, and she's only supposed to be 13 in this, and she's trying to like be around adults and kind of like scheme to get her way, but she's like literally 13, and there's so much she doesn't know and so much she has to learn, but she's still like also a very like interesting character and like can fend for herself. And I really just like the way he can build character and world together really quickly in just a short amount of time. Like, you feel like you dropped in, but it doesn't feel overly confusing. And then also I really liked the plot. Like, I think the plot felt consistent and it really took off. Like, it was kind of fast paced throughout the whole thing. And I think it really worked. Just like pacing, character work, and everything was really up my alley. He does steampunk elements really well too. Like, it's a fantasy with like sky pirates and things like that. Like, just wacky stuff that I really, really enjoy. And it's also Haitian inspired. So we've got like Haitian gods and stuff in the mix. So it was all like a list of things I like. I like when books have like a mythology element to it. I like character focused books, but I also like when a novella like this has a good payoff of plot, and all that just like really worked for me. So this is a 5-star for me, which is great because I haven't had many this year so far. So this one's from 2019, and it is one of the most intimidating books I had on my TBR for a long time, but I finally got to it. Ow. That's Bunny by Mona Awad. What to say about this? I have a reading vlog of it where I read booktubers' favorite books. Like, not specific booktubers, but like booktube darlings' favorite books, and I don't know how to feel about this. I think I'm giving it a 3-star. It's a weird book, and I don't think I liked it, but I also don't understand it. So, I don't know. You can see more of my, like, actual thoughts, like I've said before, in that reading vlog to, like, give you an in-depth into my mind on it, but I don't get it. I don't get the plot of it and, like, what we were supposed to take away. And I wanted to love it so bad, but unfortunately, I did not. Next, we're on to 2020, and I read A Murderous Relation by Veronica Speedwell. No. It's by Deanna Raybourn. It's in the Veronica Speedwell series. It's the 5th one. And in this one, we get a lot to do with Veronica and Stoker. It's got a big payoff, and I really enjoyed this one. I think I'm going to go with 4.5 stars. Maybe, yeah, 4.5 stars. It's my favorite one in the series so far, for sure. And I really liked the build-up of Veronica and Stoker, and just like the lines in here were very swoon-worthy. I get why people like love this series for the romance, because really the romance is top tier, and I really like their back and forth banter, because I think on the surface it looks like they really hate each other, but like you can also see through their actions and through their words like how much they do love each other. And yeah, I really liked it, and I also enjoyed the mystery aspect of it. And this one, they are doing it, like searching about a murder that has to do with a person of the royal family, and we get to see like a lot of things unfold, and I think it was a good one for Veronica as well, for like her personal growth, and I really enjoyed it. I loved Veronica and Stoker, so it's definitely the best one I think in the series so far. It had a lot of tension and angst, and so I enjoyed it, and I am looking forward to the next one very soon. So next we're on 2021, and I have another book I read for a reading vlog. That's The Last House on Needless Street by Catriona Ward. This was a very hyped book, and it ended up being okay for me. I gave it, I think, 3 stars, and I feel very mid about it. Like, even after finishing it now, all the thoughts I had in the video I think are still relevant, but it's also like I don't really think about this book ever. It was good, and I see why people like enjoy it, and I see why they say like it's a twisty book and everything, but I just have mixed feelings on it, and I just think the overall tone of the book is not my favorite. I think I'm more of a horror reader than a thriller reader, and I just think this didn't overall work the best for me, but I do see why it's like got a following. So that's 3 stars for me. Sorry if the camera's different. I had to change some things, but the next book I read, I didn't read for a reading vlog. I just read it like on my own. That is Servant Mage by Kate Elliott. And this is a standalone fantasy. So she has like, she's a low level like magic user, and she is in indentured servitude to the like kingdom. And one day these people break her out and they take her on an adventure, and they are trying to do some things that you get to learn throughout the book, but she's basically trying to like win her freedom by doing this task with them. And I think for the good portion of it, like the first 3/4 of the book, I was really liking it. I think the first part was a little slow, but like the middle had me really intrigued, and I really wanted to know what was going to happen. But the end, I feel like how things resolved and how things ended up going just like felt like the plot went like this to kind of like go down. So I didn't end up liking it as much as I wanted to. The main character was an interesting character to follow, but at sometimes could be like a little aggravating. And there's literally dragons on this book, and it clearly involves dragon lore with the magic. And for the dragon to be on the cover and to have it be a part of the lore, there was not enough dragons in this book. I really wanted more dragons. And it's a standalone, but I felt like it could be a series, and I wish it like was a series to build up the world more, because I think there was just so many things in this book that were untouched. We touch on a lot of the magic system and a lot of the world, but for such a short book, like I want more of it. So in that case, I think I'm also gonna go with 3-star. It seemed to be like a 3-star month for me. I didn't dislike it, and I think that it's like a good book, and I would give Kate Elliott a try. She has a series called Cold Magic, which I have on my TBR, and I definitely want to try that. I just think for a novella, like I wanted a little bit more world and everything, so I wish it kind of had been maybe like a full-length book to really dive into characters and world more. Next, I have a 5-star. That is This Thing Between Us by Gus Moreno. I had seen this book around, and I just wasn't sure about it because of like tech being a part of it, and I'm not a big like tech person in stories, but this is a grief story that follows a main protagonist who, his name is Thiago, as he has lost his wife, and it's about his grief and this tech that's kind of been like taking over their house. I ended up really loving this one. I had wanted to get into grief horror and see if it was my thing, and I just feel like from this, it really, I think, is going to be my thing. I read it in like one day. I could not stop listening to it. I listened to it on an audiobook, and I think the audiobook did a really good job. The way it talks about grief and the way that you just have to watch him like go further and further into this grief, it was very well done. It's very dark. I can see why people say to like look up trigger warnings and stuff. Like a lot happens and it's hard to read, but it was so good. And the horror part of it, like just the tension throughout, was so good. And there's this like feeling of like, is he kind of like slowly losing his mind to grief, or are all these things really happening? And I like the way it ended and the way that like just everything played out. I think I have no critiques for the book, so I loved it. I gave it 5 stars. Next, I have a book that I read as well in a reading vlog, and that is Silver Under Nightfall by Rin Chapeko. I had picked this up just like from the library because I had been curious about it. I had an ARC of it, but I accidentally like didn't read it in time, and so I had to get the library book so I could review the ARC copy, which is just my bad. I didn't realize that e-ARCs like expire, so I just thought I could like read it whenever. Turns out no, they expire. So I picked up from the library, loved it so much that I got myself a copy from Pango, and this is a vampire story that follows a vampire hunter, and he basically teams up with these 2 vampires to like stop some like mass like thing that's happening. There's like these vampires that are becoming like more than the vampires they know and are more dangerous, and so they're trying to figure out like why they're being made and like how they got made and how to stop them. And it's also got a polyamorous relationship in here as well that slow builds throughout the whole book, and I really enjoyed it. I think in the end it feels like a 4-star for me. I think it was a little long for what it was, but I really enjoyed it. I really liked being in Remy's head, our main character, and just the way consent and relationship dynamics were explored in here, and like the importance of feeling safe in a relationship, I just think was so well done, and I really, really enjoyed it. And I would definitely read more Rin Pecco, and I will continue on in the series, though I have heard more negative reviews about Court of Wanderers, so that has me sad. But I am willing to give it a go because I really, really liked this one, and I'm really happy to have it on my shelves. Then I have another reading vlog book, and that's Wrong Place, Wrong Time by Gillian McAllister. I'd picked this up like a year or two ago, and I've been meaning to read it, and I just have not, I never got to it, but it's a mystery that I felt like I was really gonna like, and I was right. I gave it 4 stars. It is a time-based mystery, so we're following a woman whose son kills someone, and the next day she wakes up and her son is out and he's at the house, and she realizes it's the day before he killed someone. So she keeps going back in time to figure out like how she got to where she was. In the end, I really, really liked it. I think the mystery, while it wasn't the most like twisty mystery, like if you're reading this from a thriller perspective and you want a lot of twists and turns, I don't feel like it's that, but I just like the commentary on motherhood and the conversation of like, can you change the past, and how will it affect the future? Like throughout the book she's meeting with people trying to like decipher how this like works and when she will like get back to the future, and what one thing she does here, how is it going to change, and like the ripple effect I think was really interesting. And yeah, just a really, I think, a big look into parenthood and like the guilt you feel as a parent, and like how much do you impact your child, and like how much do your actions and your partner's actions like impact your child. And so I really, really liked it, and I think that it went in a direction I didn't really anticipate, but like at the same time I don't think it was doing anything like crazy mystery wise, but I think this story was just so well structured. I liked being in our main character's head. I think she just was a very interesting character to follow because she's also a lawyer, so she has like that background knowledge too, which plays into it a lot, and I really, really liked it. So I would highly recommend, if you haven't already picked it up, I would try it. So next we have my biggest stack, which is my 2023 releases, and I'm just going to talk about these two somewhat together because one I talked about in a reading vlog and the other one I didn't. So that's Spark of the Everflame and Glow of the Everflame. I cannot speak today. These are by Penn Cole. This is the first one where we follow a girl who is like a mortal in the world where there are gods who are like in charge of everything, and if a mortal and a descendant, which are the god people, if they like have a baby, the baby will be killed because they don't want to like dilute the bloodline. And we're following Diem, who like her mom is a healer and she helps like heal descendants and humans, and one day she goes missing, so Diem kind of takes her place and starts to learn a lot about this world and like a lot about herself. And it's a romantasy, so we're also having a very slow burn romance in this. I gave this one 4 stars, which you can see in like that reading vlog. I really enjoyed it. I think that it was fun and just like a good time, and I flew through it. But then what I haven't talked about is Glow of the Everflame, which is the second book, and it is a huge book. It's like 600-ish pages almost, and I didn't like this one as much. I will continue in the series. My mom and sister read it, and so I want to talk to them about it, but I think this one just annoyed me more. In this one, I had said that I think she made some dumb decisions, but I could like see why she's making them, so it didn't aggravate me. But oh my gosh, did this one like aggravate me with her decisions. There were a lot of things that the author wanted us to know, and we were supposed to like obviously see certain things, but then our main character like couldn't, and I found that that's like really aggravating for me when you just like want a character to like get there faster. Like I'm like, clearly this is the love interest, so clearly you just need to trust him, and she just kept making like bad decisions, trusting like wrong people that like to me it's very obvious that they're going to be a bad person, but yet our main character doesn't see it. And I think I'd rather be with an author who like you don't know what's happening to the characters, and you don't like, you're with the character for the journey, if that makes sense. You don't like, you can't see 10 steps ahead of the main character, because when that happens, I just feel like I'm waiting for her to catch up to what like I know. And that I find that just like hard for me to enjoy. And it was very long, like very drawn out for like the same repetition of her just like making bad decisions, not trusting the main love interest and stuff like that. So it just got like a little old for me. But the ending I really liked. I think it was very interesting, and I'm excited to see like where it goes and how the world expands from here, because I think we're going to get into like the full plot, because this felt like a bit like a filler book to like advance the romance, but I was wanting to see like more of the world and like where the actual plot was going to go. And I think that for this long of a book, the start to finish, like we're kind of in a similar spot at the end. Like, yes, things resolve, but it takes a whole book for like one plot point, and so that was a little difficult for me. So I'm gonna give this one a 3-star, but I am hopeful for the rest of the series that it gets better. My mom and sister really like the third one, and I know the fourth one's coming out soon, so I will be reading and continuing, but overall a little bit of a disappointment on the second one. Then I read this for a reading vlog, and that is The Lies of the Ujungo by Moses Osei Utami. And this is a novella. It's really, really short. It's like 100 pages, if that, 80 pages. And I picked this up when I had gone shopping for Independent Bookstore Day, and I had been wanting to read this, and I was a little worried because it was 80 pages. It's a fantasy like novella that is Nigerian inspired, and we're following a main boy who decides to leave his town to try to find water for his mom and his people and save his people, and he just wants to be a hero. He's 13 or turning 13, I want to say. And yeah, he has to go on this adventure. He has to learn a lot about the world and about himself and his people. And I thought it was so well done. I gave this 4.5 stars. It just wasn't a full 5, but I really, really loved it. And I feel like going into the next books, I'm going to rate them even higher, because I think that the reason this wasn't a 5 was just I wanted more of the world and we just didn't get quite enough. But I can see where he's going to like build up the world on top in these other novellas. So I definitely will continue. And yeah, loved it. It was 4.5 stars for me. Final one for 2023 is What the River Knows by Isabella Banez. I also read this for that same reading vlog. This is a YA fantasy that I got last year when it came out, and it's following a young girl whose parents are in Cairo and they die, and so she decides to go and find out what happened to them. And so she goes and she like meets up with her uncle there and his like assistant, and they start going on this adventure that has to do with like ancient Egyptian artifacts. In the end, I think I gave it like a 3.5 or 4-star. I enjoyed it, and I will continue on in the series, but I think it just reminded me of Divine Rivals, where I enjoyed it, but I wanted a little more from it. It's very light magic, so if you like a lot of magic, it's not that. And I just wanted to fall in love with this book because I think it had a lot of elements I really like, which is like, it's historical fantasy, it's got like a little bit of a love interest, and then it brought up like a lot of topics of like who gets to keep artifacts and like things like that, like the idea of the British coming in, and many other places too, but like mainly the British coming in and pillaging artifacts and taking them away and selling them or putting them in museums over in Britain, and not like letting Egyptians keep the artifacts or like, you know, do what they want with them. So I just think that all that was really interesting, but I think it just, I don't know, the pacing wasn't my favorite. It was in some ways well paced, in some ways I just wanted more action to happen. And our main character is very naive. And when I was reading it at the time, it didn't bother me. But like upon reflection, I just think that I wanted her to be like a little less naive, because I feel like she's very trusting of people. But at the same time, the end of the book, the twist, that epilogue, I had my jaw dropped. My jaw was on the floor. So I will continue, and I do think it's a really good YA series. I think I'm also just like, I haven't been reading a lot of YA, so I'm obviously not the target audience for it. So, you know, take with that what you will. Is that the phrase? Anyway, so that's What the River Knows. I'm going to go with like a 4-star on it, which is still really good. I'm going to go with a 3.5 on it. Last 2 books I have to talk to you about. One is A Nest of Vipers by Harini Nagendra. This was published this year, and it was an anticipated release for me. So this is the 3rd in the Bangalore Detectives Club. It's actually called the Kaveri and Ramu series, but it's set in 1920s Bangalore, India, and we're following Kaveri as she like solves crimes. And this one has to do with like a circus that's in town, and she tries to figure out what happened because one night they're at a circus and a bunch of people are robbed, and then there is a murder, and so she wants to figure it out. The thing I love about this series is that it's very heartwarming, and I love the found family elements and everything. And so I also read this in a reading blog, and I said in there that I really like the found family, but I think that this one fell a little flat. Like I wanted more character development, but also there's so many characters now that I think sometimes it was hard to follow who we were with. In this one, Kaveri made more dumb decisions than she normally does, so like the mystery and stuff wasn't as fun as I wanted it to be. Sometimes in these kind of like historical mystery series, it's hard to continue keeping attention throughout the series, and I will definitely still continue with the series. I just think that this one was my least favorite out of the three, and there's always just like a book in these long spanning historical mystery series that just like doesn't work for me, and I think that was this one. So I gave it a 3-star, but I do still love like the way food and everything and like the city is described. I really love it, and I do like Kaveri as a character. And then the final book is called When Among Crows by Veronica Roth, that's the word. She wrote the Divergent series, and I had read that when I was younger, and I really liked the Divergent series, so I saw this one came out, and I wanted to give it a try. So this is a Jewish and Polish inspired story, so it's got a lot to do with like folklore of Poland and the Jewish faith, and it's following our main character, who he basically kind of like hunts these monsters. It's kind of like paranormal. They're kind of like different creature people, and he has like the gift of like finding them and seeing them, and he ends up meeting up with one of the creatures, and I forget her name, and then she takes him around, and they're trying to like find Baba Yaga to stop something. It's very, I want to be vague because it is a short story. It's only like a 4-hour audiobook. I listened to it and I really liked the audiobook. I really enjoyed the folklore elements to it as well. I just think it was a little short. Like there was so much packed into it, but I wish we had gotten like a full-length book, because for all the like lore that is in there, I feel like it was just like super quick to go through, and I wanted to like stay and understand it more, because like a lot of terms are kind of thrown out there and then we like move on. And for me, I just think like I love characters and worlds, and those two things were lacking for me because we're in 3 different perspectives. We have our main guy, we have the girl he follows, and then we have another guy. To have 3 perspectives in like a 4-hour audiobook, so it's probably like 100 to 150 pages, it's just not enough time, I feel like, to really get in the heads and like love every single character. There was a lot of their backstories that would be like somewhat fleshed out, but because like we have to switch to another perspective, you just didn't get enough of it. So my whole thing of this book is I really wanted to love it, and I think as a concept and as the characters, like I did enjoy it, but I just needed more to really love it. So I think I'm gonna go with a 3.5 on it. I feel like I probably will forget that I read it in a little bit of time, because I just like feel like the story's already like I'm already losing it, if that makes sense. So that's One Among the Crows. I really wanted to love it, and I think that if you might love it. It just might have not worked for me, but it was good, just wasn't a favorite. So there you go. Those are all the books I read in the month of June. No, of May. I hope you enjoyed, and let's see. If you want to leave the skull emoji down below for my favorite book of the month for death, that'd be great. And also, if you want to like let me know what you thought of any of these books if you've read them, I'd love to hear your thoughts as always. And just I appreciate you watching, and I will see you next time.